you came in 87.
1987, yeah.
What was your swim career? What was your own swimming career, and where did you grow up and all that?
Well, we moved to Des Moines when I was 13,
Uh-huh.
and I ended up going to Hoover High School.
Okay.
And so I had a small background in competitive swimming, nothing really big. And a guy by the name of Coach Dave Linder at Hoover, my freshman or sophomore year actually, because we didn't have freshmen in school at the time, approached me after a PE class and said, "It looks like you have some talent in swimming, and I'd like to see you join our swim team." And so I did, and he became a pretty big mentor of mine, and we had a pretty decent swimming program at the time. My senior year, we ended up second in the state, and then I had two choices to go on athletically, Western Illinois or the University of Northern Iowa, and I chose to go to the University of Northern Iowa. Best decision ever. I ran into another fabulous swimming coach and mentor, Coach Glenn Henry, and over the 4 years of swimming, four-time conference champion, three-time NCAA qualifier, and my senior year was fortunate enough to become an All-American in swimming. So
Congratulations.
really that's all I've ever known is swimming.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a swim coach and teach. I thought I was teaching to be a coach. I didn't really want to teach. I wanted to be a coach. But honestly, once I got into the business, I was more of a serious teacher and still a swim coach also, but I took my teaching seriously also.
Right. And what did you teach?
I was in the physical education department.
Okay.
I started out, I was 10 years at Waynesburg High School over by Iowa City. It was the smallest swimming school in the state, but they had a really nice facility at the time. A doctor had donated the money, but it had to be a pool.
Yeah.
And so they had a really nice facility, and so I got 10 years experience there. Had some decent swimmers, state qualifiers, and some kids that would score points, but I was never going to be a Cedar Rapids, Washington, or a Valley High School,
Right.
anything like that, because we weren't big enough. And I thought I could be a good coach. You don't go into coaching to do it part-time, or half-ass, excuse my language, I probably shouldn't have said that. And so John Hayes had a job opening for swimming, and John didn't move real fast on hiring, so I called him about every other day, and he said, "Don't worry, you're going to get an interview." And I said, "Well, I haven't heard anything, John." And he says, "No, you'll get an interview. You get an interview." So finally, they brought me in for an interview, and fortunately, I got the job. I loved Williamsburg High School in Williamsburg, Iowa. I didn't leave because I didn't like it. I just wanted to find a school where I felt like I could reach my potential.
Right.
And ended up here, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Oh, great. Great. What was it about your first visit here that kept you enthused or heightened your suspicion that you wanted to be here?
Well, I think John Hayes, for one thing. He was a pretty good salesman. And I enjoyed the people.
Mm-hmm.
The scariest time was the first day of school. And I tell this story often. First day of school, I'm coming from Williamsburg High School. I don't even know if I'm a good coach. I mean, I like coaching, and I worked hard at my coaching at Williamsburg, but I didn't know if I was a good coach or not. And I walk in the building, and all of a sudden I see this guy by the name of Bob Dara. I mean, he won 300 and some meets in a row. I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? And then I ran into this gal by the name of Sharon Hansen. I'm going, oh my God, this is going to be tough. And then I met this guy named Donnie Morrow, and I'm thinking to myself, holy smokes. And I said to myself that day, I said, I want to be like them.
Yeah.
I'm going to be those guys.
Yeah.
And they helped me along the way, and I was very passionate about what I did, and I worked hard at it. And I don't know how things turned out the way they did. I mean, I was super fortunate.
Right. Does you mentioned those names, and we could mention another 20, 40, 50 names probably, right? Does what part is it that Dowling hires well, and what part is it that Dowling nurtures well?
Well, I think they're always looking for the best, but you talked about Bob Nizzi earlier. I didn't know who Bob Nizzi was. I didn't know what idea who that guy was. But after I met him, and spent time talking with him, he helped me along the path also, you know,
Mhm.
so he was very nurturing. Dr. Dottle. Dr. Dottle helped me a lot. I was a big fan of Dr. Dottle's, and he, I think, respected me. And anytime I needed help, he was there to help me with whatever I needed to get better. I was pretty independent. I didn't really need a lot of nurturing.
Mhm.
The families here,
Right.
you know, some of the families are still very good friends of mine. I see them often. My swimmers, now that I'm traveling with my wife, I see them often. You know,
Yeah.
kids maybe I haven't seen in 20 years.
Yeah.
And I'm happen to be in their town, and with social media, hey, coach, I see you're in town. Let's get together, that type of thing. So the students, sometimes I guess I was nurturing them. I don't know, but I think I got as much out of my students as they got out of me.
Great. Great.
Kairoses, you know, that's all development for
Yeah.
who we become.
You remember your first Kairos?
13.
13? You went on 13? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. My son went through his, we had 2 girls go before. Now I still have a son here. He
Mhm.
went through his, and he came back this high off the
Yeah.
ground.
Well, I just wrote a letter to one retreatant coming up, and I said in my letter that I thought I got more out of it than the students did.
What parish did you go to?
I wish you wouldn't ask that
Okay,
question.
we can
I'm
pass.
actually not Catholic, so
Okay, all right.
so everybody says, "What? They hired you?" And I said, "Yeah, I was a good Presbyterian." But there's nothing better than the religion portion of it in school. So I kind of say that, yeah, I guess I'm Presbyterian, but in a lot of ways, I feel like I've got a lot of Catholicism in me too. And I very much practiced along with the kids. And,
Right.
I think it's an important part of schooling.
Sure. The pool was here a little before you were here?
I think it opened in 86, maybe 85
Okay.
or 86, and I came in 87. So Bob Trusty was the longtime swimming coach, and he had to go to Wise at crazy times of the night or mornings. You know, I mean, we did crazy stuff in the morning anyhow.
Sure.
But they were traveling all over just to try to find water time. And then there was a girl by the name of Linda Burton that took over. I think it was, I don't know if it was both boys and girls, and she was here for about 2 years, and then I came in after that.
So you got almost a brand new pool, I guess.
Yes, it was very nice. Yeah, it was very nice at the time.
Um,
It's still not a bad pool. I mean, pools age, you know.
Right.
But
Yeah, right.
we had some pretty intense swim meets there.
I bet. And practices, I
Yeah, and it got very loud in there.
bet. Yeah. Do you remember some meets or events or moments that stand out?
Oh, there's a lot of them. I think I only coached the girls for 10 years here. It just got to be too much to do, both girls in men's or women's and men's. And I worked every summer too. I always had a summer job. And so I only did girls for 10 years, but I think one of my favorite finishes to a meet was at Valley High School. And I don't know, we were both ranked pretty high in the state at the time. Maybe 1 or 2, maybe 1 and 3 or 2 and 5, I don't know. But the meet came down to the last relay. And they were ahead of us, not by a lot, but they were maybe 2 or 3 seconds ahead of us, which can be a lot. And
Sure.
I had this gal by the name of Frankie Hansen on the anchor leg of our relay, and she was a multi-time state champion. And she came back and touched the Valley gal out, and we won the meet.
Yeah.
And probably the first time we'd ever beat Valley in a swim meet.
Is that right?
Yeah, and so that was pretty cool. In the boys' seasons, it's always a state meet. I don't know, we didn't perform every state meet as well as we wanted to, but there was so many phenomenal state meets. 2 back-to-back meets. We won 2 state championships in the first 2, 2000 and 2001. And they both went down to the last relay, both against Ames High School. And we were in the lead in both races. but Ames had a phenomenal butterflyer, one of the top swimmers in the country. And so we had to hold that kid off. And both times that a young man by the name of Josh Otis was our anchor leg. And I mean, we had 3 good swimmers ahead of that too, but Josh had to hold on for dear life and swam lights out at the end of the race, as did the other 3 guys. But yeah, I think in 2000, I think we won by .04.
Oh, jeez. And that gave you the title.
And that gave us the title. And the second title was not quite as close, but it was close enough.
Yeah.
Some people would say that 2000 400 free relay race was the most exciting race in the history of Iowa swimming.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I was the swim team manager in high school and college.
Oh, wow.
All those years. I can tell you being on the other end of that 400 free relay story and being touched out at the wall in a day before touch pads when the judges would all huddle.
And you know you won.
And then you wait for them to flash the lane number with their fingers.
Yeah.
And it was, so I know those feelings. Yeah. What makes swimmers unique from other athletes?
Well, I think all athletes are unique, and I mean, we all say we work hard, right? I mean, and they do. There's no question all athletes work hard. But it's pretty tough to be a swimmer coming in at 5:45, 6 o'clock in the morning and hitting the water for an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes before school, and then going to school all day and coming back for another 2.5 hour practice after school. So I think you have to have a special mentality to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I suppose all coaches say this, but I think I've never hesitated recommending one of my swimmers for a job. And a lot of times when you say to them, "Oh yeah, he was a swimmer for me," right away that sells it because they know how much work swimming takes. Yeah.
Right. Early mornings. Is there an early morning story that you recall, either of somebody dragging in at the last minute or you dragging yourself in at the last minute?
Well, honestly, I never. I don't know that it. I better not say I never was, but I was typically here 15, 20 minutes before the kids
practice.
for the most part, even in the morning. And I at the time I lived out in Dallas Center, which was early morning, and before all the stoplights in Waukee was about a 20-minute drive. I was kind of a stickler on practices and being on time. In fact, if kids showed up late, sometimes I wouldn't let them practice. I'd just say, "Well, why don't you go home and go back to bed? The rest of us are here working," something like that. So one time, this guy by the name of Pete Connery, great kid, I think he's in Chicago currently, he came in late to practice, and I think it was over the holidays. And typically I probably act madder than I matter. Is that a word? I probably act more mad than I really am, but I act like I'm really mad. And so I started yelling at Pete. I said, "What the heck are you doing? Why are you coming in 10 minutes late?" And he said, Coach, I ran into a mail truck." Because it was snowing out that day, and he slid into the back end of a mail truck.
That's something. And not only was it the kids getting up early, but it was the parents getting up early.
Yeah, true fact. Yeah. Parents did enjoy Christmas holidays, though, because we tended to work pretty hard over Christmas, and they said the kids wouldn't go out and get in trouble. They just come home between practices, take a nap, and then in the evening they were so tired they didn't go out and do anything stupid.
That's good. But it is a unique. And so I guess each sport has its own.
Oh, of course,
family.
100%.
They all have their own family.
Yes, 100%.
Swimmers they have a reputation to be very organized and academically
They have to be
prepared.
They have
And
to
is
be.
that just because of their day?
I think it's because of their day. Yeah, I think it's because of their day, and well, I think probably 98% of the family, maybe 100% of the families that come to Dowling, I mean, they have high expectations for their children and what's going to come after high school.
Sure.
And so, not necessarily a swimming thing. I think it's just part of the school. But I think they have high goals, and I'm proud of almost every one of my swimmers and some of the things they've done in their lives. They've done good things.
That's great. That's great. How would you prepare a swimmer if you start at the start of the school year? How do you set goals to know what you're going to do in February or March? Or?
Well, we use what they had done the prior year. Some of them would swim, 9 months out of the year with their swim clubs. So you kind of keep an eye on that, what they've done in their swim clubs and what kind of times they've reached. And then you just start as the season's going on and we get into meets, we see what they're swimming and what we think they're capable of doing at the end of the year. First part of the year is typically just long distance, not real fast swimming, and then you start throwing some fast swimming in the middle, and then you cut back and start tapering to try to get them rested up. Interestingly, currently in swimming, they don't taper quite as much as we did back when I was coaching. They still kind of keep the yardage up some. And then you have to figure out each kid, what's better for each kid.
Right.
So it can be hard, but there's no set plan because every kid's different, every year's different. So I don't know that I ever tapered the same from one year to the next because it's all different. Every year's different.
Do you remember, and I'm sure you had a lot of them, a swimmer who exceeded anything they imagined they could do?
Oh, I think I had a lot.
Yeah.
I think there was quite a few. I don't know that I could just say one. I mean, there were kids that, just came out for swimming that weren't even very good swimmers. And then, by the end of the 4 years, they're state qualifiers. Now, they may not have won it or been second or third, but it just, I can remember a young man by the name of Adam Mitchell, his freshman year. He was the 24 state qualifier in the 100 backstroke, and I had to get mad at him the week before the state because he was out riding a skateboard. And so I had to explain to him that, maybe you need to wait till after the state meet. But anyhow, Adam became a pretty prolific swimmer and a very good college swimmer at the University of Minnesota. But I think it was his junior year. He just went bananas at the state meet. I mean, he was dropping right or left. And I think it was after his IEM, he came up to me. He goes, "Coach, where does this come from? I don't understand it. Where does this come from?" Right. And it's like, I don't know, Adam. It just happens.
Sometimes it happens. Yeah. It's magic.
Yeah, it's magic. Yeah. Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, right. Were they shaving and tapering? That was an era of certain tapering and shaving.
Oh, always.
Always
you still shave even now. They don't shave the heads as much as they used to. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think equipment in swimming. There's really not much equipment, but the caps have become more high tech and the goggles are more high tech. And so, kids aren't shaving their heads as much as they used to. I think that some still do. I know they still do. I did not go to the state meet this year, but I did the year before. And, there's still a lot of shaved heads. Oh, yeah, a lot of them shave their heads.
Right.
And some of it's just tradition.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Did the kids did they have a party and shave at a party?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the youngster who wasn't very good, and by their senior year, they're contributing.
Yeah.
I was in a Zoom call a few months ago with my alma mater, and it was interesting the number of swimmers who said that in our championship seasons, yes, our All-State or All-Americans performed like we thought they would, but it was the 1 or 2 points from the guy who got 13th place or
100%.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, going in, for the most part, that your good kids are going to, maybe they're going in ranked second and they get third. I mean, that's a loss of points, but still big points. But you got a kid that's going in 15th and gets 8th. That's a big step. That's a big move up. That's a lot of points. So I always tell my kids in dual meets, 5th place is what wins the meet.
Right.
That's a point. And that's a point we get that the other team doesn't get. So 5th places are important.
Right.
And so don't come in 6th, come in 5th.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. You mentioned that the equipment has gotten high-techier. That's a word.
High techier, yeah, I don't know. More high tech. I don't
More
know.
high-tech.
That's a good question.
And I assume the pools have too.
Oh,
What,
of course.
What is the next generation of swimming pool? What does it provide that
Well,
we haven't had?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the old pool at the University of Iowa was a pretty fast pool. I mean, it was 15 feet or 14 foot of water. I mean, it was deep and it was, for that age of pool, it was pretty fast. But, like the new pool at the University of Iowa, pools at Johnston and Southeast Polk, Linn-Mar, they're all 8 lanes. They have a good guttering system, so when the water flows into the guttering system, it just disappears, so you don't have the waves.
Right.
The depth of the pool. I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe they say that 7 foot is a good depth for pools. And if they're a little deeper, that's more deep. That's okay also. So yeah, the technology, the filtering system, and how quickly it can take the water out of the pool, where the water comes back into the pool, where those are located.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable with what some of the pools are. For the Olympics over in Omaha, they bring a pool in and build the pool right there. It's a break apart pool. I mean, they take it down and they sell it after the trials to whoever wants to buy it. But I mean, they're phenomenal pools, and they just bring it in. And just a note for all you swimming fans out there: the next Olympic trials, Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis.
So they're going out
of Omaha and going to Lucas Oil Stadium.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago that you had several hundred people at the Olympic trials.
It's even people maybe that don't know much about swimming. The Olympic trials, especially the finals at night, are unbelievable. They're playing loud music now. They got pyrotechnics. They got all kinds of stuff going on, and it's intense. Only 2 people make the team, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's intense.
I sometimes think of new pools are sort of they don't have that noise. They don't have that smell. They don't have that.
Yeah. Well, and because their ventilation systems are so much better now also.
Yeah. But there's something we romanticize about the smell and the humidity and the noise and the echoes and this pool here at Dowling. I'm sure you have memories of the cacophony of what a swimming pool is.
When it first opened, when I was first here, it was good, but as the ventilation system aged, it just became, and it probably never really was vented the way it should have been vented to begin with. But yeah, I mean, it has become a problem off and on. Sometimes you can remedy it, sometimes you can't. A lot of it's water chemistry and how you take care of your water. How often you drain it. A big pool like that, as much as it's used, probably needs to be drained every other year, because you get buildup, that the filter can't take out. And so, there were some rough times in practice. And I'm sure it's continuing today.
But there were also fun times and exciting times, I would imagine. All the time.
I think it all was pretty exciting.
It balances out.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see, where am I? Did you teach kids to swim, or were you a competitive?
When I first came here, I started a Learn to Swim program.
Okay.
In the summertime, it became pretty prolific. So my first year here, my first summer, I was going to teach lessons here at Dowling because I needed a summer job, and then aquatic director's job came open at Hyperion Field Club, and I always kind of wanted to do the club thing.
Right.
I grew up not grew up, but I worked for Dave Lindroth, Des Moines Golf and Country Club for a number of years in high school and while I was in college because it was a great job and I made a lot of money at the time for a college kid. And so I really wanted to get back into the club thing. So Hyperion opened up and I told them a lot of lies and they hired me. And so I had a bunch of kids signed up for swimming lessons here. So I hired one of my assistant coaches to run it for me, and we hired some kids. And then, interestingly, as it progressed over the years, because I continued running it, because it brought a lot of money into the swimming program here at Dowling.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, John Hayes would always say, well, the swimming program, they're self-sufficient because of the money we bring in during the summer. Yeah. And it gave my swimmers, a lot of my swimmers jobs. And fortunately, I was able to pay them well enough to keep them around. And I had some dynamite, mostly girls, that stayed with the program for a number of years, even into college. You know, I'd start them as sophomores or juniors in high school, and they'd stay through college. And then a couple of them went and got their teaching degree and came back and worked in the Des Moines area. So they did that as their summer job for me. And all of a sudden, we've got 1,000 kids in the summertime in swimming lessons.
Yeah, right.
And so I don't think when the pool was built, because our locker rooms are so small, anybody ever imagined that would happen. I mean, it was unbelievable. And so I did that for like 28 years.
Isn't that something?
And then was at
so at
Hyperion where I taught lessons
Yeah.
myself. And then I was approached by Guido Fanu, who was getting Glen Oaks up and going. And so he and I worked a deal, and I went to Glen Oaks and started their program there. So I was still personally actively engaged in teaching lessons there also.
Right.
And then my last 15 years I spent at Des Moines Golf and Country Club, where I was getting older, so I just worked with the upper level kids. I couldn't get into that water and work with the young ones anymore.
Yeah.
So, you know, between here and the country club programs, I feel like I was able to get a lot of people into swimming, at least learn how to swim, which I think is very important.
Right.
As a young kid, especially, because there's a lot of enjoyment when you're young around the pools. You know, we tried to, somebody called and maybe their husband just got sent overseas in the military. We tried to help them out with lessons, or maybe they had a big family and just didn't have enough money. Tried to help them out with that. Yeah. We tried to do what we could there too.
Yeah.
So I think always felt it. I mean, we advertised all the parochial schools. We didn't advertise anywhere else, and then it was word of mouth. And you know, we just always thought it was, it's for the Catholic community, but it's also for the Des Moines community.
Yeah. Make it a safer.
Yeah, and I know we had kids coming from Newton and Grinnell, and I mean, we had kids coming from quite a different place because our Dowling Catholic swimmers were outstanding swimming instructors.
That's something. Do you remember where you learned to swim?
I learned to swim in a pool in Taylor, Michigan.
Was it a club? Was it a backyard?
It was a public pool.
A public pool.
Yeah. And I did a little bit of competitive swimming, I guess, in Taylor. Yeah, because we lived there till I was 13. Not a lot, but summertime swimming.
How long did you live there?
13 years. We moved
So you
when I was
remember
3.
that pool? Do you remember that pool?
Yeah.
And stories from that pool and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I kind of remember.
Yeah.
It wasn't too far from our house. I mean, I don't remember walking to it, but it wasn't too far.
Yeah. I when they invited me to do this, I started thinking about, of course, high school and college first, but then the pool where I learned to swim popped into my head, and then it popped in. My grandparents would drive us across the country every summer, and every other night we got to stay in a motel that had a pool. And I just started remembering these swimming landmarks.
Yeah.
What is it about swimming that you mentioned a little bit about how people remember their pools, and they learning to swim is a landmark in your life, I guess, in some respects.
Yeah, I'm watching my 4.5-year-old grandson do that now. So
Are you really?
Kind of fun. He just finally would back float on his own, so that was kind of cool.
Isn't that neat? Yeah. There are also, I think there are a lot of coaches who have stories similar to yours, who did teach in the summer, and maybe not at a country club or a school, but I've read about a coach in the University of Maine who summered in New Hampshire and taught hundreds of kids in his backyard.
Oh, yeah,
every year.
Actually, a gal that coaches the Waukee girls program, Shelley Twigg, she built a pool. Her and her husband built a pool in their backyard so she could teach lessons. Or I don't know if she teaches them all, if she hires people to help her with it. But I may not be right on this, but I know that they paid for that pool in about a summer and a half because of the lesson program.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Can you say what's more rewarding, coaching or teaching?
They go hand in hand.
Yeah. That's what I think.
You know, I don't always. I mean, if a kid would come up to me that I had in class, I probably wouldn't be able to come up with his name, but as soon as they told me their name, I know exactly who they are.
Yeah.
And I typically had pet names for the kids, you know, and I'd always say, you know, if you don't like that name, just tell me and I'll call you your regular name.
Is that right?
I had this guy, and he's still in Des Moines area. He's an artist, really. I mean, he's not an artist, but he you know, redoes showers and houses, and he's just an artist. I mean, he's phenomenal work. His name's Chris Hearn. I hope this doesn't embarrass him. He may not hear this anyhow, but I know his sister's kids, I think, here in school here now. But I was standing in line at, I think it was Menards one day, and he was standing in front of me. And I didn't recognize him right away, but he turned around and said, "Coach Crouch, how are you?" I said, "I'm good. How are you?" And he said, "I'm doing great. Chris Hearn." I said, "Yeah." He says, "Do you remember what you called me in high school?" I said, "Heck yeah, I remember what I called you in high school. Hitman Hearn." Because Hitman Hearn was a boxer, you know, a really good boxer. And so I'd call him Hitman Hearn. He said, "Yeah, I love that." Yeah.
How many times did you get thrown in the pool?
I don't know. A few
State
times. Well, you know, when we won the state meet, they had banned being thrown in the pool. Now they went back to letting you be thrown in the pool.
But you couldn't.
For some reason, at the University of Iowa, they quit doing that. I think it happened when Cedar Rapids, Washington won once, and they all went on the 10-meter tower and jumped off. And so I think the University of Iowa said, "Yeah, we're not going to do that anymore."
Right.
So, you know, some big meets with Valley, things like that sometimes.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
It wasn't a bad thing to get thrown in.
Right.
I think my last meet of my career here at Dowling, they threw me.
They threw you in.
Yeah.
That was the last time you were
pretty
in this
sure.
pool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I think I've got my list pretty much taken care of. Did you have kids come to school here or anything?
Mhm.
You did?
Mm-hmm. Two.
Were they swimmers?
Oh, they were both swimmers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My son Justin and my daughter Megan.
It's a sport. I was looking through some old registers, and there was a story once about 33 sets of brothers in the CIML or
Oh, yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
But it is a sport that a family adopts.
A lot. Yeah. I mean, I've had families of 5, you know, and they all swam here.
Yeah.
I think it is because it's a lot easier to transport the whole family to one sport than like they do nowadays. And they got, not only do they have kids doing different sports at the same time, but they have kids doing 2 sports at the same time. It's like, I don't know how they do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's good. Okay.
And they're not all going to be professional athletes. So
Right.
I don't know. Maybe you're overdoing it. Maybe you're not. I don't know.
Right. Well, good.
Yeah.
Tell me what Dowling has meant to your family.
Oh gosh. I mean, it's been a great experience. Families. People say, "Well, if you had to do it over again, would you go do something else?" And I said, "No, I'd do exactly the same." I mean, the kids here are fantastic. Faculty, supportive. I mean, it was my life.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks.
See if we can maybe see something down in the future down at that end of the campus.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be exciting.
Glad they called me in and talked with them. I think I gave them a little information today. So
Did you? Good.
I
Okay.
think it helped them out.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.